Thank you guys. All right. Okay, I'm very excited. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, whether you are watching live or you're watching the recording of this video. Today, we're going to be talking about the astrology of Canada. And this is part one of a 4-part video series that I'm going to be doing once a week over the course of the next 4 weeks. So today in this part one, we're going to be talking about the birth chart of Canada and the hidden and not so hidden history of Canada. All right. So first of all, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Meg, and I am a Canadian. I'm from Canada, currently residing in Belgium, and I am a mystic and musician and astrologer from Canada. I'm very, very passionate about astrology. And I think I have some good news for us all, us Canadians and everybody else that is going to be watching this. Good news, and some truths being revealed that are coming from the chart of Canada, from the astrology. So I'm going to just do a little overview here of what we're going to cover today. We're going to first cover a little bit of the, as I said, hidden and not so hidden history of the country's origins and how do we get the birth chart of Canada. So I think it's very, very good when we can look at the history and see what has gone on in the history. The history can teach us a lot. I believe when we don't recognize and bring forward our history, we can forget valuable lessons that our ancestors learned. So we're just going to try to briefly as possible look at some of the history and some of the hidden history, which I think is very, very relevant as pertaining to what is going on in Canada today. And I think I'm very passionate about sharing freedom information on Canada. If you follow me on social media, you'll see I'm a freedom lover and freedom loving Canadian. And I'm very passionate about us being the best country that we can be. So looking at the history can show us what are the actual true origins and truth of this country. And yeah, we'll get into all that. And we'll get into how do we get the birth chart of Canada. We're obviously going to look at analyzing and interpreting the birth chart of Canada. And then we'll just do a little recap of key points and themes. Okay. So we're going to start by going back to kind of the very beginning. And some of this information, I'm sure that a lot of you guys will know, but even if we already know it, I think it's good for us to just bring it to the forefront of our conscious mind when we're going to look at the chart. So let's go to the beginning. So pretty much most of us, all of us know that the country that is Canada is less than 300 years old, and that there were many Indigenous people already on the land that is Canada now. And this picture here in the PowerPoint is Indigenous peoples at the time of European contact. And you can see there's many different nations. There were nations already on this land of the First Nations people. And I could be wrong about this number, but I have heard over and over again in the research that I've done, different documentaries and things I've looked into, that there was around in North America, something like 100 million First Nations people living in North America, about that number when the Europeans first came. So we went from 100 million to really not that many now. There were already people here, basically. There was already a culture here. Maybe they didn't call it a country, but they called it, tribes in their language and nation. So that was already going on. Let me go to the next slide here. So this is a very, very brief little timeline that I've made of some of the history of the land that is Canada. So around 16,500 years ago, the glaciers began melting, allowing people to move south and east into Canada and beyond, supposedly, okay? Supposedly, the first inhabitants of North America arrived in Canada at least 14,000 years ago. So this is our mainstream history, which if you guys know me at all, I like to question the mainstream history. And there's actually a lot of evidence that peoples have been on the land that is North America for up to 100,000 years ago. So somebody's work, if you're interested in looking at that, is Graham Hancock. If you guys have ever heard of Graham Hancock, he has a book called America Before, where he explores how there's lots of proof that people were here a lot longer before 16,500 years ago. And this relates to Canada because it's the land that we're talking about Canada is. And a lot of that history, I think, is being hidden. And that is one of the themes that we're going to see in the chart of Canada: hidden history, hidden secrets about our ancestors, about the true history of the land. So I think that's really interesting. From 14,500 BC to about 1000 AD, my question is, what is the true history of this time? What was really going on at this time? What was going on? I think we'll find out a lot of that in the coming years. A lot of that's going to come out. 1000 AD is the first European visitors to Canada. So up until very recently, our history book said it was Columbus, it was, you know, the Spanish or the French or the British. No, it was the Vikings in the 10th century were the earliest Viking expeditions to North America. And now this is very well accepted by historical scholars that it was actually the Vikings. And there is a sacred site that I've personally been to in New Hampshire called America's Stonehenge that is fascinating. It's like a mini Stonehenge that's thousands of years old in New Hampshire, and they have Viking artifacts there from the first contact. So I've actually personally seen that in person, and I've seen the depictions from the First Nations people from that area that depicted how the Vikings were very respectful. And they actually sat and kind of had ceremony and meals with the elders of the tribe, and they were respectful and they left. Then, as we know, 1534 AD is when the other European visitors started coming, and that wasn't really as nice of an experience. Technically, it was the French and the British. 1534 is when the first French explorer called Jacques Cartier sailed across the Atlantic Ocean from Europe, entered the Gulf of St. Lawrence, and as the traditional story goes, he planted a giant crucifix into the shore of what is now Gaspé, Quebec, claiming all the land he could see for the King of France. So that's a very symbolic start of that new chapter of the European visitors. So then and I know I'm really skipping ahead, guys, but to get into the whole history, I think I might have to do another little hidden history video, longer form. But from 1534 to 1866, the year before Canada's birthday, original birthday, we had the French and British European colonization of Canada. We had wars between the First Nations and the European, wars between the British and French. And a lot of this stuff, I know if you're a Canadian like me, we've heard about some of this in school, but we never really go deep into all of this stuff. And this shows up in our chart, in the astrology chart of Canada too. It's like we kind of just talk about it very lightly, but it's really heavy information and material. I mean, wars between the First Nations and the Europeans, and a lot of other stuff going on there. There was the fur trade that was really popular. The Europeans like to come get, beaver fur, the bear fur, all that stuff, bring it back to Europe. So they got a lot of prosperity from that. And then also 1776, during that time period, our next door neighbors had their American Revolution, and they became really the first truly independent country in the world. Okay, so as I said, Columbus did not discover the Americas. Many nations already existed here in what is now known as the country of Canada. The first visitors were Vikings, and it's recorded that it was actually quite peaceful. And they just left and they just went back to, Scandinavia. Okay, so now we're fast forwarding to something called the London Conference, which I personally had never heard about before, looking into all of this. So the London Conference was in December 1866, and I'm just going to read the caption that I have here in the PowerPoint. The London Conference was held in London in the United Kingdom in 1866. It was the third and final in a series of conferences that led to Canadian Confederation in 1867. 16 delegates from the province of Canada, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick gathered to set out the final outline of the proposed, okay, and I've highlighted this word, proposed Canadian Confederation, resulting in the British North America Act 1867. So we have all of these delegates, ministers, whatever they're called, from the colonies of Canada, British North America, are not making the Canadian Confederation and finalizing that in Canada. They go to England to propose this Canadian Confederation to the Queen of England for approval. Okay, and this is very, very relevant when we're looking at the chart of Canada. Confederation was accomplished by way of royal assent to the British North America Act on March 29th, 1867, followed by a royal proclamation stating, "We do ordain, declare, and command that on and after the first day of July, 1867, the provinces of Canada, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick shall form and be one dominion." What an interesting word is that. One dominion under the name of Canada. Therefore, Canada was signed to be an official country by Queen Victoria. And this is something that is a huge theme in our astrology of we don't really like to face, as Canadians, the truth behind our country. We are not the United States. We do not have a constitution with the first words, "We the people." We are a country that was approved to be existed by the royal bloodline family of the United Kingdom. It was Queen Victoria was our first real official leader, not a prime minister. The prime minister says their oath to the monarch when they become a prime minister. It wasn't King Edward, I think that was his name, or it was King Edward after Queen Victoria. And now we have Queen Elizabeth on all our money and all our passports. And if you open the first page of your passport, it says it doesn't say you have the right of free mobility because you're a Canadian and we're a free country and you have that right. It says you have the freedom of mobility without hindrance by way of Her Majesty, the Queen of England. So I don't know about you guys. I've talked to a lot of Canadians as I've been making this astrology presentation and before. And the truth is, most of us do not realize what our country actually is, that we are a constitutional monarchy. So the Wikipedia, if you look here, the Wikipedia definition for a constitutional monarchy, if you read this part, it says, it's basically a system where there's a monarch and they act as the political head of state, but they don't really do anything. They're just kind of there. It's not serious. The country has the government. But the truth is, you guys, the queen can do pretty much anything she wants. It's not the prime minister. It's not us. We're a constitutional monarchy. And this term, I think, was kind of made to make it seem like, yeah, we're under this monarch, but we've got our own government. We've got our own thing going on. But no, you guys, this term royal assent, did you guys know that once passed by the Senate and the House of Commons in identical form, a bill becomes law when the Governor General or a deputy gives royal assent in the Queen's name. This takes place during a ceremony in the Senate chamber or through a written declaration that is communicated to both houses of Parliament. So maybe some of you guys know this, but I know myself and many Canadians do not realize that every bill to become a law actually has to technically go through the Queen for her approval. And she doesn't really do that herself because she's over in England. She's got England, her and the royal family. They've got Canada, they've got Australia, they've got all these beautiful places. We have someone called the Governor General, who's basically a person that's a physical representation of the Queen. And kind of like one of the Queen's modern day pages in Canada, and approves everything. So this is a question that I'm going to be asking you guys over and over again during this presentation is, does this sound like a truly independent and free country to you? Yes or no? So the royal prerogative is a part of our Constitution, and it's a legal term which refers to the basis of how the Crown exercises its legal powers, how the royal family, the Crown is another word for Queen, royal family. Today, these prerogative powers are mostly exercised on the basis of advice from elected officials. It's limited by the Constitution Act of 1867, but where there is no provision in the Constitution or in law, the royal prerogative still exists and is used to make law and enable the government to take action. Blah, 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 blah. When there is no conclusive, we can't see the top part of this presentation, but, oh, now we can. While there is no conclusive list of royal prerogative powers, it is generally accepted that in Canada, these powers include all of these things. The list goes on and on. So to say it as simple as possible, there's no list of royal prerogative powers, but in general, these powers include the appointment of a prime minister, the dissolving of parliament, royal assent to approve any law, the royal prerogative of mercy and pardons, declaring war and peace of the Canadian Armed Forces. So at any moment, the Queen could declare a war and the men have to go to war or else they'll get imprisoned, lose their homes, et cetera, et cetera. The issuance of our passports, making appointments to various positions, including royal commissions of inquiry, appointment of the Governor General. What else have we got here? The use of crown in symbols and of the title royal for organizations, granting royal patronage in Canada, and appointment of Canadian force. So this is a lot of stuff, you guys. Are you guys hearing what I'm hearing? Also designs for Canadian coinage. The royal, this part freaks me out the most, to be honest with you guys. The royal prerogative may also include reserve powers which enable the crown to act in unprecedented emergencies, which are not provided for by constitutional convention or law. So does that not sound to you guys like, okay, we don't have a real list of these royal prerogatives. We're still under this monarchy, this queen, this royal bloodline family. And at any moment they could make an unprecedented emergency and do whatever they want. Okay, so, and we're going to get into why all of this is relevant when we look at the chart. Sandy says, I don't understand why the crown still has so much power. Me neither. Me neither. But this is something that is going to change. The astrology is showing us that very soon. So just a quick little review of some of the terms that I just mentioned that are very, very important. As Canadians, if you're just a Canadian, I don't think I even need to say freedom-loving Canadian. Like if you're just a Canadian, I think it's important to know these terms, okay? So First Nations, maybe it's the first time you're hearing that term. So that is what I think, one of the most respectful ways when we're speaking about the First Nations Indigenous people of Canada, to call them First Nations, because they were the First Nations people, not the European-born Canadians. Also, oh, I think someone's unmuted. I'm just going to mute that. Okay, sorry. So First Nations. So that's our respectful way of talking about the Indigenous people, not Indians. I'm sure you guys have heard the term Indian in talking about Canadian Indigenous people and American Indigenous people. The term Indian comes from when the Europeans first came to Canada and the US. They thought the First Nations people looked like the people from India, the country of India, and that's why they just called them Indians. So pretty disrespectful. First Nations, Indigenous are the right words to use. The other term is constitutional monarchy. So that's what Canada actually is as of this moment. As I'm making this video on, what is it, June 12th, 2022, we're a constitutional monarchy. We're still under the rulership of the monarchy of England. Royal assent is basically that the Queen has to approve every law that we want to put forward in Canada, a free and independent country. And royal prerogative is all the many, many powers that the Queen has over Canada, which we don't have a list of what all of those are. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a list and knew actually what all of those are? And then Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, we're going to look into that in part 2 of this video series next week. That's something that happened after Canada was born as a country. We're going to look at that in part 2 when we get into the solar return year that we've been in of Canada, the solar return chart year. Okay, so now we're going to get into the astrology. Woo! I hope I didn't bore you guys with some of that history, but I think it's really, really important to look at. So how do we get the birth chart of Canada? Well, this is a cool painting from 1864 made by Robert Harris, painter Robert Harris, and it's the Fathers of Confederation. The 33 men that started writing the Canadian Confederation that they then brought to the London Conference in 1866 to get the approval from the Queen. So July 1st, 1867 was the day that the Queen of England approved to be the start of her Dominion of Canada. My question is, who was the person that actually chose this day? And why did they choose this day? because personally, I don't really feel like it was the queen that chose that day. I could be wrong about that, but that's just kind of my spidey senses. And 33 Fathers of Confederation. If you're into conspiracies at all, then you'll have alarm bells ringing when you hear the number 33 of 33 men getting together in a room making meetings. So this painting, these are the Fathers of Confederation, and somewhere in there, I think in the middle here is John A. Macdonald, our first Prime Minister of Canada. And you'll also notice that there are no women in this picture. There's no women of Confederation, and there were no First Nations people here. There were no First Nations people involved in any of this, in any of the making of Canada. Inez says most, if not all, were members of the Masonic Lodge. Thank you, Inez. Yes, I do believe that 100%. So this painting is really interesting, made by Robert Harris in 1864, was put up in the center block of the Parliament buildings, and it was one of the artifacts that was destroyed in the 1915 Parliament building fire. That's a whole other thing that I might make an astrology video on one day that Sandy, who's listening, knows we've looked into. Is this fascinating, really weird event. In 1915, there was a huge fire of the Parliament building in Ottawa. People were killed and many artifacts destroyed. This Fathers of Confederation painting was one of the artifacts destroyed. So luckily we have this picture somebody took of it. Okay, so here's a pretty neat newspaper clipping from England. By the Queen, a proclamation. So this would have gone out in 1867 to all of England in the newspapers then. A proclamation by the Queen for uniting the provinces of Canada, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick into one dominion. That word is just creeps me out when I hear that. Under the name of Canada. So July 1st, 1867 is Canada's birthday. And 12 a.m. is the time that we put as the time in the chart, because the chart was created by approval of the Queen, and she said July 1st, 1867 is when this starts. So, okay. This gives us the beautiful chart of Canada here. And so here is our chart of Canada. And this is a lot going on here. If you've never seen an astrological chart before and you're looking at this, you may be thinking, okay, like, what is this crazy circle with all these numbers and shapes, and what is all this stuff going on here? So I'll give you guys the basic rundown of what this is. So this is the sky from Earth's perspective from Ottawa, Canada on July 1st, 1867 at midnight, 12 a.m. So everything in the bottom part of the chart was the planets, the asteroids, star systems below the horizon line, and everything in the above part was what was visible in the night sky. Okay. And we can see here these really cool symbols. These are different planets and asteroids and different astrological placements. We can see there's 12 houses going around in the circle. So those are the 12 astrological houses. Each astrological sign rules a house. So, it goes in the order of Aries, Taurus, Cancer, goes in that whole order. So yeah, there's all the stuff around there in the chart. And then this middle part, all these lines and the shapes that you might see, this is where we see the aspects. And the aspects in a chart are the relationships between the planets. going on. And there are positive aspects and negative, challenging aspects. There's both. Okay, so this is the beautiful chart of Canada, and I am being 100% truthful and real when I say this is a beautiful, beautiful chart. This is a magical chart. This is a special chart. This is not your average chart. I was joking with my friend Sunny earlier. She said to me, do you ever see like an average chart when you're looking at someone's astrology or looking at the astrology? And I say, yeah, sometimes there's just average charts, but this is truly a special chart with a lot of powerful stuff going on that we're going to get into. So some of my first impressions of this chart, and different astrologers will say different things, but some of my big first impressions when I first see this chart of Canada is obviously we're going to look at what are the big three. What's the sun, moon, rising of Canada? So Canada is a Cancer sun. We can see the sun is in the 4th house here. The moon is in Gemini in the 3rd house, and the rising or ascendant is in Aries. And it's really cool when somebody or something has a rising Aries, because that means that the sign ruler for each house is the ruler of that house. So for example, the 1st house is the house of Aries. So because the chart of Canada has an Aries ascendant, the sign ruler is Aries of the 1st house. So it gives it like a double power of the energy that house already has. So our big three is Cancer, Gemini, and Aries, the country of Canada. What's very, very interesting is Canada has a 12th house stellium. So have you guys ever heard of the term stellium before? This is one of my favorite terms that we're going to get into. It's when a chart has 3 or more things, planets in the same sign or house. So Canada actually has 2 stelliums, and not every chart has a stellium. Canada has 2. We have a 12th house stellium. We have 4 things in the 12th house. And we also have a Pisces stellium. So we've got 3 things in Pisces in the 12th house. And what's fascinating about this is that the 12th house in astrology is the house of Pisces. So this is one of the really big themes in the chart of Canada, is a huge, huge Pisces influence. 12th house stellium and Pisces stellium. We're going to get into all of that. And if that's not enough Pisces energy for Canada, the planetary ruler of Pisces is Neptune. And Neptune, the planet Neptune, is right on top of the ascendant in the chart. So when we're looking at an astrological chart, if you're an astrologer, anything that's on the ascendant line, the descendant line, the midheaven at the top middle, or the IC, the bottom middle, those are very, very significant placements that we want to look at. And anything exactly on those places or right above, right below is a very big influence on the chart. So Neptune, the planetary ruler of Pisces, gives us a triple dose of Pisces energy. Neptune on top of the ascendant. And we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that a lot. So then the other really big first impression I have, which I am really, really excited about and fascinated about, is the Sun and Uranus in this chart are exactly conjunct 0 degrees. So what is a conjunction? A conjunction is a type of aspect. So when I mentioned earlier, when we look at the middle of this chart, this shows us all the aspect lines, the relationships between the planets. So a conjunction is when 2 planets are right on top of each other in the night sky. So in the chart of Canada, at the midnight position below the horizon, Uranus and the sun were right on top of each other from Earth's perspective. If we were to look out at the sky, they were right on top of each other. Exact 0 degrees orb. That's the strongest aspect you can have. And the sun and Uranus are both 8 degrees in Cancer in the 4th house. So, woo, this is really, really powerful. We're going to look at that. Okay, so we're going to look through each of the main positions and what that means for the country of Canada. Then we're going to look at the main aspects and also chart patterns. And as I said, a little review of the key points and themes that I think are very important. So of course, we have to talk about the sun. The sun in astrology is, in my humble opinion, the most important part of someone's chart, or in this case, Canada's chart. The sun in the solar system is the life giver, the life force giver energy of our solar system, right? It's the sun. It's the most important thing. So in somebody's chart, this is going to be the most important thing. So Canada is a Cancer sun. All right. So it's a Cancer sun in the 4th house. The sun is sitting in the 4th house, which is the house of Cancer. Whoa, we've got a double Cancer energy. And the sign ruler of that house is Cancer. So that's like a triple Cancer energy. So Canada has a very strong Cancer energy. And what is the sign of Cancer? What is a Cancer? Does anybody, any of you listening, are you a Cancer, or do you know anybody who's a Cancer? The sign of Cancer rules in astrology: home, family, our ancestry, our traditions. It's all about home and family and the comforts of home, the strength and stability of our home, our homelands. It's also our ancestral lands. And Cancer is one of the 3 water signs. So it's one of the 3 most sensitive signs in astrology. Cancer is ruled by the moon, grandmother moon. So it's very divine feminine, intuitive, sensitive. So if any of you guys have been to another country, you may have had a similar experience to me. I think this has happened pretty much everywhere I've traveled to. When they hear your accent and they say, oh, you're from America. You know, when you're in a different country as a Canadian, they say, oh, you're from America. And then you say, no, sorry. You probably say, no, sorry, I'm a Canadian. And then they say, oh, you're from Canada. Notice how people's tones change when you say they're from Canada. Oh, you're from Canada. You guys are so nice. You guys are so polite. We love you guys. We love Canada. We love it. This is how people talk about Cancers. Oh, they're so cute. They're so sweet. They're so nice. They're so lovable. I love a Cancer. So I think it's really, really funny that the chart of Canada is Cancer, and that kind of makes Canadians have this Cancer energy. We're very, very sensitive, naturally loving. We love our country generally overall. I wrote here in the slide, the sun in Cancer for the country of Canada overall means that the country as a collective holds itself as valuable and important. It is home and family. Important because it's our home, it's our family. It's where we come from if you're born here. People usually feel proud and happy to be Canadian. Canadians have a reputation for being very lovable and friendly, comforting and nurturing, like Cancers. The sun in Cancer is, as I said before, exactly conjunct the planet Uranus. So this is something that we'll get into more when we talk about the aspects, but to give you the basic rundown of this right now as we're talking about the sun, this makes for a really unique country. because we've got this Cancer energy. Oh, it's so nice. It's so loving, you know, home and family, traditions, pride of the country, but then conjunct Uranus, the planet of surprises, shocks, innovation, freedom, and independence. Uranus is the planet of our rebelliousness, our freedom, our independence, and innovation and shocks and surprises. Uranus is the ruler of the sign Aquarius. So this gives Canada actually a big Aquarian influence, Uranian influence. And yeah, we'll look at that more when we get into the aspects. So we care about freedom and attaining freedom and independence and fairness for all. This is Age of Aquarius vibes, you guys. This is Age of Aquarius vibes. The Sun and Uranus that are exactly conjunct each other's strongest degrees, like I said, are exactly both 8 degrees, which is a Scorpio degree. So one of the things I practice in my astrology practice is Nikola Stojanovic's degree theory. And he's an Eastern European astrologer that unfortunately passed away last year, but I highly recommend you guys check him out. He's, in my opinion, like a genius astrologer, and he created the degree theory. So the theory that each of the 30 degrees in astrology, see how every planet in this chart is in a degree. So the Sun, 8 degrees, Uranus, 8 degrees, Moon, 28 degrees. Each degree is a degree of a sign. So the 8th sign is Scorpio in astrology. So therefore the 8th degree would be the Scorpio degree. And this, when I first saw this, and I can't get this out of my head every time I look at it, my astrological interpretation of the Sun and Uranus in Cancer exactly conjunct, strongest aspect in 8 degrees, is this is a country that is destined to shockingly, Uranus, shockingly go through a death, rebirth, and transformation process for it to step into its highest potential and power. And I believe that that is what we are going through right now in Canada with the big challenges and heaviness. And it's like a dark night of the soul that we're going through in Canada. And Scorpio rules dark night of the soul. Scorpio rules the darkness coming up and death and rebirth and the biggest changes of our lives, which is scary and hard and challenging beyond belief, but it's an initiation for us to step into our power. And when we look at the aspects, I'll get into how we have so many nice aspects that we are just destined to fulfill this prophecy, this energy, if you will. I don't think the country of Canada, and I don't think Canadians are going to fail in this rebirth process into our fullest potential. The Sun is trine Jupiter, so this is one of the really positive aspects. Jupiter is the planet in astrology of positivity, optimism, luck, abundance, blessings. Everybody loves Jupiter in astrology. It's like it's the lucky planet, and it's expansive. So anywhere Jupiter is in the chart, you're going to get a lot of that sign energy or that house. So Sun of Canada in Cancer, trine Jupiter in Pisces, that is very, very lucky. There's a lucky, blessed influence, like magical fairy dust, because Pisces, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, rules the magical realms. It rules magic and, you know, fairies in the mystical realms. So we have like this magical protection energy over Canada. We're naturally very lucky, and not everybody has that. I like to use the example sometimes that there's certain things in a chart that if people could like pay for to have that in their chart, you know, kind of how people pay to have plastic surgery to look a certain way. If people could pay for certain things in their chart, a sun trine Jupiter, like 1 degree orb, so only 1 degree off from each other in the trine, is something you would pay big bucks for. Very, very positive aspect. So Inez just put in here, Canada in the chat. Canada has 62% of the world's freshwater lakes, with the largest inland waterway in the world, the St. Lawrence. You know, Inez, I didn't even think about that. And that's an amazing thing to bring up, because Pisces is a water sign, Cancer is a water sign, and the Saturn is in Scorpio, a water sign. So yeah, all this water, just fascinating. Makes sense. When you have a lot of Pisces in a chart, it can pertain to a lot of water. So thank you for bringing that up. That's really cool. So that's our sun sign. We're a Cancer sun with some really cool aspects hitting the sun of Canada and Canadians. Okay, now we go to our moon sign. So the moon in astrology is our emotional nature. It's how we are emotionally. It's our deepest feelings and desires and feelings on the inside. And it's what we only share, really with the people closest to us. This is one of our most vulnerable placements, our moon sign. It's our emotional self, our inside self. So with Canada having the moon in Gemini, the emotional nature of Canada and Canadians is Gemini. And Gemini is the sign that rules communication, socialization, our local neighborhood, having fun, a little bit superficial, like, you know, the superficial things in life, going out, having fun. There's nothing wrong with that stuff, but you guys know what I mean. It's information, facts, ideas, creativity, writing, speaking, our community. So with the moon of Canada being in Gemini, this is highlighting again this theme around the neighborhoods in our local community being very important to Canada and Canadians. And it's also highlighting that emotionally clear communication and facts are very, very important. And that Canada actually has the gift of the gab, so to speak. If you're a Pisces or you know anyone with Pisces, they're very good at speaking. They just very good speakers. They can talk forever. So Canada has stuff to vocalize and share with the world. There's things to be spoken. And just like how the sun in Cancer is in the sign's home house, the 4th house, the moon in Gemini is in Gemini's home house, 3rd house. So this is like a double Gemini influence on the moon. Now, the moon is in a Cancer degree, according to Nikola Stojanovic's degree theory, and 5 of the planets in the birth chart of Canada are in a Cancer degree. So this means that not only is Canada a Cancer, but there's a very big Cancer influence through the degrees. And we'll look into all those planets that have those degrees at the end of this presentation. So the moon actually has a Cancer influence. Even though it's in Gemini, it has a Cancer influence with this degree. So this makes Canada really even more hypersensitive, even more sensitive, even though it's a Cancer with a Pisces stellium and the 12th house stellium. The moon has a Cancer degree. My goodness, very, very sensitive and intuitive and empathic. The moon has a major aspect in the chart of Canada that is a challenging aspect. Okay, you guys, the moon is in square to the asteroid Chiron, and Chiron, which is here in the 12th house, it's in Pisces, in the 12th house of Pisces. We're going to get into that when we talk about the Pisces stellium. When you have moon square Chiron, there's very, very big wounds and pain from the past to deal with. That's the challenging, that's the icky, hard part of it. The positive part of it is Chiron, the wounded healer asteroid, shows us our greatest wound, but it's also our greatest kind of superpower to express in the world. So there's things to be dealt with, and this is one of the big themes in this chart that I've seen, is there's major, very sensitive wounds that Canada has, and we'll get into that more. So the third big three placement in the chart of Canada, so we've looked at the sun, we've looked at the moon, now we're looking at the ascendant, also known as the rising. Astrologers use those two words interchangeably. They both mean the same thing. It is the starting line of the astrological chart. So Canada has an Aries ascendant. And I put here, yay, thank the universe for this placement. LOL, this is our saving grace. So this is literally our saving grace, you guys, because we have all this really watery, sensitive, empathic stuff going on as a Cancer, with the moon in a Cancer degree, and the rising is actually also in a Cancer degree, 16 degrees, and the Pisces stellium and the 12th house stellium. Aries with our ascendant in the chart is how we are seen, how people first see us. It's a lot of our personality traits as well. It can be, if you're a person, our physical appearance. And it also shows, as I said, some of our superpowers. So with an Aries ascendant, we have within Canada, the people of Canada, warriorship and leadership and strength and determination and positive masculinity when Aries is used right. So the Aries ascendant, the ascendant in the chart, sometimes people grow into that, or in this country, in this instance, the country will grow into that over time. And I think, and this is going to get very majorly activated over the coming few years, which we're going to get into in the other videos in this webinar series, because a lot of the planets currently are in Aries. So when a planet is currently in a sign that we have that sign in our chart, that planet or placement is getting activated in our chart. So our Aries ascendant of Canada is actually being activated right now, because I believe right now Mars is in Aries, Jupiter is in Aries, there's some asteroids in Aries, I think Neptune is in Aries. There's lots of things that are going into Aries and over the coming years. So we're going to become more and more Canada as a collective into our masculinity, our warriorship, our leadership, our confidence, our not being a victim anymore, which this Pisces stellium that we have, one of the negative sides of it is victimhood and giving your power away and not standing up for yourself. And Aries, if any of you guys are in Aries or any of you know an Aries, they do not put up with any BS. Aries don't wait around. They don't feel anything overly sensitively unless they've got some water stuff going on in their chart. They are very energetic at all times. I think they're the most energetic sign out of the whole zodiac. And they are like warriors. They're ready to, at times, physically fight at any time. I don't want to call for violence at all, but they can be very aggressive. They stand up and they protect, and they don't take any BS from anything. Sometimes we can give Aries a bad rap because they can really freak out over little things, but don't you think it's better to always stand up for yourself than to never really stand up for yourself. If we didn't have this Aries ascendant, I think it would be a lot more challenging for Canada in the coming years. But I believe that this is our saving grace. So Canada has warriorship and pride to it. And we can see this over the course of the time that Canada has been a country since 1867. The Canadian Armed Forces were in the Allied forces in World War I and World War II, and both times beat the Nazis, beat, the bad guys, and actually liberated countries. So talk about Aries energy, liberation, protection, positive masculinity. For those of you guys who may not know that are listening to it, I'm currently living in Belgium. I'm a Canadian citizen, but I'm a Belgian resident. I'm in a relationship with a Belgian. And here in Belgium, this is where we get the poppies from for Remembrance Day. The poppies grow here. This is one of the countries that our ancestors, Canadian men and women, came and fought and died and survived. They liberated Belgium and the Netherlands in World War I or World War II or both. Can't totally remember, but they liberated this land. And there's many streets with Canadian city names, and there's Canadian war graves all over the place. It's very, very in your face. And I wish that every Canadian could come over here and see the huge influence that Canada has had on Europe and liberating these countries. So we have that warrior in us, right? We have that warrior in us, but we've got some really big challenges, which I'm going to get into when we talk about the 12th house stellium, that we have to deal with before we can really step more into this Aries ascendant, because we got a lot of water going on. And as I said, that Neptune, the planetary ruler of Pisces, is right on top of the ascendant. So that can also be challenging on our ascendant, is the planet of very high sensitivity, Pisces, spirituality, intuition, illusions. This is one of the themes we're going to talk about. There's a huge, what I'm calling spell of illusions over Canada, right on top of our ascendant. So we have to deal with this Neptune before really stepping into our ascendant. Okay, so there are all of the interplanetary placements and also outer planetary placements, which is a lot of information. And I'm going to go through what I feel is the most relevant to go through with these, because it's a lot of stuff. So we have, if you're looking at this chart for the first time, like, you're not just your sun sign or your moon sign or your rising sign. It's also very influential. Each of the planets were in an astrological sign and sitting in an astrological house and in a degree and have aspects to each other on the day we were born. So this is how fascinating and complex each chart is. There's no two charts that are the same. And it can give us very specific insights when we start to look at the inner planetary placements, outer planetary placements, some big specifics of a chart. So Mercury, the planet of communication, the planet that rules Gemini, communication, our local neighborhood, ideas and information, our conscious mind. Mercury is our conscious mind, is in the sign of Leo in the chart of Canada. In a Cancer degree, 4 degrees, so the third planet to have a Cancer degree. So Mercury has a little bit of a Cancer influence. And Mercury is in the 5th house, which is the house of Leo. So we got the sun in Cancer in the house of Cancer. We've got the moon in Gemini in the house of Gemini, the 3rd house, and we've got Mercury in Leo in the house of Leo. So there's a lot of things in places that the energies are flowing well together, if that makes sense. So Mercury in Leo, in the 5th house of Leo, what does that mean? This is Canada and Canadians' mental stimulation and how they think and what turns them on mentally, interests them mentally. So Leo is the sign of generosity and very, very creative. Leo is ruled by the sun. It's life force, it's being alive, it's being the center of attention, it's being the performer, it's generosity, it's having fun. Leos like to have fun. So for Canada and Canadians, it's for our conscious mind, very important. Fun and enjoying life is very, very important. Cancer degree in the country, of the homeland, of the people, that everybody's happy, that everybody's well taken forward. This is very much on our conscious mind, and it affects us when we're not in a happy place. And I think we're kind of seeing that right now. Mercury is also how we communicate. So we can communicate with generosity, and we have that on the world stage. Canada, I think, communicates very generously and passionately and lovingly. Venus is in Gemini, in a Gemini degree, 15 degrees in the 2nd house. So here's another one. Venus is a planet in its home house. So when Venus is in its home house, the 2nd house, this is really, really nice because Venus is, the planet of love and beauty, but it also rules our relationship with our values and material things and our comforts in life. So, when I first saw this made sense to me that Canada is considered to be one of the most, what's it called, highest living standards in the world. Venus in the 2nd house. Canada, as it is the country right now, has a very high living standard. It's very luxurious when you think about it compared to a lot of other countries, because it's huge. It's so much space and so much beautiful nature. And we've got these huge roads and huge highways, and, it's quite luxurious, if that makes sense. And Venus is in Gemini, like how the moon is in Gemini. So there's this very big emphasis on communication gifts, love of our local neighborhood. And it's in a Gemini degree, Venus in Gemini in a Gemini degree. So it's quite a bit of Gemini influence on the chart of Canada as well, which is pretty cool. The Mars in Virgo, so Mars is in Virgo in the chart of Canada at Leo degree, 5 degrees. So Mars, I always find really, really fascinating because Mars is the planet in astrology of Mars rules Aries, and it's the ancient ruler of Scorpio. So the current modern day ruler of Scorpio is Pluto, and its traditional ancient rulers Aries. So Mars rules Aries and Scorpio. Mars is our masculine energy. It's our sex drive, to put it frankly. It's our a lot of our sexual energy, our life force energy, just our energy and stamina for life. It's how we protect ourselves, our aggression, all that masculine stuff. So with our Mars being in Virgo, again, in the house of Virgo, this is like almost every single sign of the planet is in the house that rules that sign almost. Mars in Virgo in the 6th house of Virgo means there's a lot of energy, Mars's energy, being directed towards day-to-day life, day-to-day routine, work. These are all the things Virgo rules. Being of service, work, our day-to-day routine, practicality, that things are working in order. Virgo, the negative side of it is also perfectionism. And I think we see this in the Canadian mentality. We like to think that we're perfect, we're the perfect country, everything has to be perfect. I think that comes up with our Mars being in Virgo. But it makes Canada very industrious. We do have really good industries when it comes to different kind of industries. And also Mars is our, Virgo is our physical body, the health of our physical body. So Mars, planet of our energy levels, our stamina, in the sign of Virgo, health of our physical body, that can put a lot of emphasis on Canadians' physical bodies and maybe going through a lot of hard things, our physical bodies. And this makes me think of actually the winter time, and how our bodies as Canadians actually do put up with a lot in the winter. Pretty much anywhere in Canada, unless you're in BC, I think British Columbia is where they have the lightest winter times. Pretty much anywhere else you're in Canada in the wintertime, it's like goes down to -35 wind chill, snow up to your knees, snowstorms, snow blowers, barely any sun, very, very cold, all that stuff. That's intense. Mars and Virgo, intensity onto the physical body, a warlike energy onto the physical body. So I think that makes a lot of sense with this placement. And, most other countries do not go through what Canada goes through in the winter. Like I said, I'm here in Belgium. There was this winter time that just passed, no snow that stayed on the ground this winter in Belgium. Can you imagine that? Canadians listening to this, a winter without any snow staying on the ground and without going below -10. Pretty crazy, right? So our bodies put up with a lot. Mars and Virgo, we can tolerate a lot, and we have a lot of energy to get things done in day-to-day life and industries. That's Virgo. Inez says, Canada's symbol is the busy little beaver. That's, oh my God, that's so cute and true. That's like a total Mars and Virgo thing. Okay, now we've got our outer planetary placements. So these are the outer planets, and the outer planets do have a big influence on us, but the outer planets compared to the inner planets take a lot longer to move and to change through sign to sign. So they're more of a generational energy, but then we can get the really specific rundowns through the aspects and stuff, but it is still very, very relevant. So in the chart of Canada, Jupiter and Saturn are both retrograde. So both of the planets, Jupiter and Saturn, were not moving direct. All of the other planets were moving direct. Jupiter and Saturn were retrograde. They, from our perspective, were moving backwards, but actually just, technically changing their movement, which looks like it's moving backwards, but it's not actually. And when a planet is retrograde, it is a time to collectively on the planet review, reflect, cleanse the area of life that planet rules. So we have that in the birth chart of Canada. Jupiter retrograde in Pisces, in the 12th house of Pisces, and Jupiter is the traditional ancient ruler of Pisces. So another really big, huge Pisces influence in the chart of Canada is Jupiter in Pisces in the 12th house. And Jupiter being the biggest planet and the planet that rules expansion, optimism, making a lot of something, makes a lot of Pisces energy in the chart, even already with the stelliums of Pisces and the 12th house. So Jupiter in Pisces is about, we have gifts. Jupiter is luck and gifts. Canada has gifts of spirituality, the mystical realms, what Pisces rules, creativity, sensitivity. We have those gifts. Those are natural gifts of ours. And it's in a Libra degree of 7 degrees, which is also a very creative sign. Saturn is also retrograde at 17 degrees Scorpio. So Saturn, I like to call Saturn Granddaddy Saturn. And if you are into astrology, you know this. Saturn is one of the malefic planets. Malefic, meaning it has a harsh energy to it. It is not benefic, a loving, feel-good energy to it. It has a malefic energy to it. Saturn, as I call him, Granddaddy Saturn, is the planet that rules discipline and responsibilities and success, succeeding in life, being disciplined, your responsibilities, right? And it's retrograde in the chart of Canada. So this is a really important thing. You have to have your stuff in order. You have to be constantly reviewing that everything is in order and the responsibilities are being kept of Canada. And Saturn is in Scorpio, which is a malefic sign, not a malefic planet, but a malefic sign. So we've got Saturn, malefic planet, in a malefic sign of Scorpio. And I'm a Scorpio, so I love to talk about the sign of Scorpio. This is responsibilities of power. Scorpio rules power and control and what is hidden, and also spirituality in the occult and secrets. So there's, when we look at this, the 12th house stellium, which we're going to get into next, is all about secrets and things that are hidden. And Saturn in Scorpio is also saying to us, yep, there's some secrets here that are going to come up. Saturn opposite Pluto. That's one of the aspects. Pluto is the planetary ruler of Scorpio. So there's some stuff to deal with here. The country of Canada has some major control issues behind the scenes that have been at play that need to be held responsible, that are going to be held responsible, big time. And I'll get into the specifics of that in the next video. We'll be talking quite a bit about Saturn. Uranus, as we've talked about before, the planet of surprises, shocks, unexpected surprises and shocks, freedom and independence and innovation, is in Cancer, Scorpio degrees, like we've talked about, conjunct the sun. Neptune is the modern day ruler of Pisces. So Pisces, traditional ruler, Jupiter, modern day ruler, Neptune. Wow. Huge. Oh, sorry, guys, I made a mistake. Neptune is not in Pisces. It is in Aries. That's my mistake. So Neptune is in Aries at 14 degrees Taurus. So Neptune in the chart has a really interesting thing going on because it's right on top of the Ascendant, which makes it very, very significant. And it's the middle planet in a T-square between the midheaven and the sun, and with Neptune in the middle. So there's a lot of, and there's also, we're going to look at in a bit, a yod, which is a sacred Kabbalic shape pointing its finger towards Neptune. So Neptune is like this part in the chart of Canada where it's like, you have to deal with this. You guys got to deal with this Neptune in Aries. Aries is facing things head on and being bold and being a leader. And Neptune is the planet of, Pisces. So it's the spiritual and the mystical realms. But it's also illusions and lies and things that are totally not grounded in reality. So the Neptune in Aries is actually quite nice because we're going to be able to face these illusions that have been put over the country. And there's a lot of them. Pluto is, the planet of just death and destruction and control issues and power, all of that lovely stuff. As I said, ruler of Scorpio, it's a malefic planet. So it can be scary and challenging. And it's in Taurus. So stability is very important to us. The beauty of life is very important to Canada, all the things that Taurus rules. And it's in the first house. When you have Pluto in the first house, there is going to be a total transformation, death, and rebirth of the self-identity. And that's the number two, second time we see that with this Sun and Uranus conjunct at the Scorpio degree, death and transformation of the country. And we see it here with Pluto in the first house of self-identity. Isn't that very, very interesting? Inez says Canada's motto is peace, order, and good government as stated in the BNA Charter. Very cool. I've never heard that before. That's cool, Inez. Okay, this is what I really, really want to get into with you guys. This Pisces stellium. And I know Nicole, who's watching, I think you have a Pisces stellium. Yeah. So Canada, the country of Canada has a Pisces stellium. It also has a 12th house stellium. And this is a huge deal. So as I said before, a stellium is when we have 3 or more planets in the same sign or house. Okay. And the 12th house is the Pisces house. So we've got Jupiter, South Node, and Chiron and Neptune in the 12th house, and then Jupiter, South Node, and Chiron in Pisces. So why is a stellium important? Well, because it's a lot of one specific energy, one specific sign. So it's a huge influence and theme on the chart of Canada. Like, I just cannot express in words how big of a deal that this is and how much this actually makes sense to me that we have this Pisces stellium. So the positive side of a Pisces 12th house, I'll just call it a double Pisces stellium because that's basically what it is. The positive side is that Canada naturally has gifts of empathy, sensitivity, being loving, being connected to the spiritual and the mystical and the mythical realms, spiritual gifts, shamanism, magic, spiritual healing, all that stuff. That's the positive stuff. That's the good stuff that we like to hear, right? But the 12th house is one of those houses that I'm just going to be honest with you guys. When astrologers see a 12th house stellium, it's kind of like bells go off, like ding, 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 ding. Okay, there's major things, hidden wounds, pains, possible victimhood, very deeply beneath the waves of the Pisces seas, like things under the surface. Things that are very hard to understand. So some of you may be listening to me and think, well, no, Meg, the sign Scorpio rules secrets and what's hidden. That's true. Scorpio and the 8th house of Scorpio rules hidden things, secrets, lies, illusions, all that stuff. 100%, that's right. But I believe with Scorpio, it's more tangible. It's more closer to earthly existence, those things. With the 12th house and with Pisces, the last sign of astrology, the last sign of the zodiac, It rules the far away outer dimensions and mystical realms and beings and things that we do not even understand. So out there. So we're talking about really big things, secrets, wounds being hidden. And I believe the country of Canada has to overcome the challenges of this Pisces, double Pisces stellium, 12th house stellium, before we can move forward and use the Pisces energy as our superpower. Okay. I've talked about the Jupiter in Pisces and the Neptune in Aries that's there in the 12th house. Let's talk a little bit about the South Node and Chiron. Very, very interesting that those two things are right next to each other, because Chiron is an asteroid, it's not a planet, and it's very significant to look at when you look at your astrology. Chiron is very important to look at because Chiron is known as the wounded healer. And our Chiron in our personal astrology shows us our greatest personal wound, that when we work on that and overcome that, it becomes our superpower. And Chiron, the god who's the mythical wounded healer, he heals his wounds and then becomes like a shamanic healer that can help heal other people's wounds and help them go through, their healing journey. So Pisces, our Canada's Chiron being in Pisces, this is the wounds of the past holding us back, the pain of the past, the pain of what our country was actually built on. That Canada, the truth about Canada, and this is why I started with the hidden and not so hidden history of Canada. And there's so much more that I didn't even touch with that around the wounds of the origins of our country, and how it's basically stolen land, many, many millions of people slaughtered, families slaughtered, a culture slaughtered, residential schools, the pass system, which is something I recently learned about, where I believe it was from the late 1800s to the 1940s, I think 1941. If you were First Nations, you had to have a pass, a signed pass by an Indian officer. I hate using that word, but that's what they were called, to leave the reservation. Imagine, I can't even imagine that. And those are just a few things touching the surface. There is so much wounds of the origins of this country that need to be dealt with, true reconciliation that needs to happen. We talk about it, this trendy reconciliation. We need real reconciliation and repaying in some sort of way back, I believe, to those people, to those First Nations. We need to, and I'm not saying I have the answers, I'm just saying what the astrology shows, it needs to be looked at and healed, because that's the basis of our country. And once we get through that, imagine when Canada gets through that, and that's really hard stuff to look at. When we're able to really heal from that collectively, and I don't know how long that's going to take, but that's a country that's able to heal from that. And I think we will, and it will help inspire other countries. It will be healing for other countries. There's a theme in the chart of Canada of being in service to the other countries and being like this spiritual shaman guide to the other countries, and that people are going to come to Canada to heal spiritually. I truly believe that there's many, many spiritual healers, and there's going to be retreat centers and all this stuff. That's the positive side of it. But the challenging side is we have to deal with the deep, deep wounds of the origins in the past. So that's Chiron. And the South Node beside Chiron, that horseshoe looking symbol, is actually not a planet. It's a calculation of a certain place from the moon's nodes. So it's a little bit advanced astrology, but this is a really important part of an astrological chart. And the south node shows us past lives, where we're coming from, the energy that we have to leave behind, the challenges that we need to leave behind. And the north node, which is always right opposite the south node in a chart, shows us what we need to focus on, basically our purpose and our destiny and what we're here to do. So according to the astrology, the south node and the north node of Canada, the south node is Pisces. So Canada is being called to leave behind the victimhood. I'm actually just being channeled to say that very clearly, to leave behind the victimhood. That's what South Node in Pisces really is. And I am not saying that First Nations people are like, you know, in a victimhood. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm even talking more in modern right now, modern day, what's happening with Canada, how Canada has really just gone along with this whole, I'm just going to say it, globalist agenda, World Economic Forum agenda, just kind of going along with it. It's time to leave that behind. And the North Node in Pisces, North Node in Virgo rather, is let's bring our spiritual gifts that we've had from the past of Canada, from what was Canada before it was Canada, the further reincarnations. Bring all that lovely gifts forward, Virgo, in a practical way, in a methodical way, to be of service. Bring it forward in a grounded way to help the world and be of service. That's what Virgo rules, being of service. Making it work, seeing things clearly, not getting caught up in South Node, the illusions. So it's victimhood and it's illusions. And I want to talk about these illusions. And when I'm saying what I'm about to say, this has been me / is me, and I'm working on healing this part of myself, as I think many Canadians are. We have this 12th house stellium, Pisces stellium, spell over us. It's not a literal spell, but I'm calling it like a spell of illusions. So if any of you guys know a Pisces, I love Pisces, by the way. They're magical. They're one of my absolute most favorite signs. And there's positive and negatives challenging to every sign. So I'm not trying to, you know, diss Pisces or anything like that. But one of their challenges and their dark side is they can get totally, completely ungrounded from physical reality and get lost in the illusions, in a dimension of illusions, in the realm of illusions, right? So have you guys ever heard a Canadian speak like this? I have spoken like this, by the way. So I'm doing a silly little example right now, like this. This is a Pisces energy. Canada is the most beautiful, magical country in the world. I love Canada. It's the freest country in the world. It's the best, freest country in the world. Even though, you know, we've got a queen and there's this stuff, we're the freest country in the world. And I love Justin Trudeau because he's so beautiful. He looks like a prince, a magical fairy tale prince, and he legalized marijuana. Have any of you guys ever heard a Canadian talk like that? I have talked like that many times. That is a total Pisces stellium, 12th house stellium spell of illusions that Pisces and things with a Pisces influence can get caught up in. This I'm not going to look at the reality, the grounded reality, Virgo, North Node in Virgo, Mars in Virgo. I'm not going to look at that. That's, you know, that's negative. Everything's okay. I can sit at home, even though there's 6 million Canadians unvaccinated, not able to get on a plane. I can just sit at home and order Uber Eats and get it right to my door and watch a movie. It's just magical. It's the best country in the world. Even though there's a queen and we're not actually totally independent, and I don't actually know how my country works, it's still the most magical country in the world. It's still the freest. We're the freest country in the world. I have heard that my entire life. I'm a Canadian, born 1992, almost 30 years old now. I have heard that in and out my whole freaking life. It's the best country, the safest country, the cleanest country. And Pisces can get like this, really intense like this. That's how Canadians talk sometimes. It's like, actually, okay, sometimes we got to grab a Pisces by their shoulders and just give them a little loving, like kiss on the cheek and a little Pisces shake, like come back down to earth and face the reality. There's some crazy stuff going on here. 12th house stellium. There's some really big wounds and secrets and things being hidden here. And Saturn in Scorpio, opposite Pluto. We've got some weird leaders with control issues. And this has been a theme of the whole country of Canada. And we have to get into our North Node in Virgo. This is what Canadians, I think, need to tell this Pisces part of ourselves. It's like, it's time to face the facts and not just look at someone like, oh, they're so great because they're beautiful and they legalize marijuana. Which, by the way, marijuana, drugs, all that stuff is ruled by Pisces. Escapism. Not saying marijuana is bad, but you know, it can be big, big escapism, and that's Pisces. So Pisces is trippy because it's got this, the light side is like total magical realm and being connected to your guides and magical and a fairy tale life and all that stuff, being creatively very gifted, beautiful music, beautiful creativity, imagination. But then, and Pisces are like little magical creatures. I just freaking love them. They're like unicorns and wizards walking around. I love Pisces. But then the dark side is like really intense because it rules all those outer trippy realms. So it's like the realms of illusion. And Pisces also rules like the screens and movies and Hollywood and the TV screens, and like seeing through all of that, the seeing through all the programming, what's real and what's not real, that can be a really big issue for Pisces. So I think this is a really big issue for Canada and Canadians. Like it's hard for us to tell. It's a really big challenge for us. What's real and what's not real? Like this new Pierre Poilievre guy, for example. Once again, a young man who looks good, he speaks good, kind of like what we saw with Justin Trudeau. And he's saying everything we want to hear. But what's really going on here? We're going to look at Pierre Poilievre, Justin Trudeau, the Queen in the 4th video of this series. So that's the rundown of this 12th house Pisces stellium. Lots of magical energy to it, but really, really big challenge. Sandy says, as a Capricorn, my guess is not many Capricorns would say that. What are you talking about, Sandy? Sorry, I think I read that late. I read your comment late. Okay, so now we're going to get into this thing, the North Node, which is not a planet. It's not an asteroid. It's actually not a heavenly body. It's a mathematical calculation of the moon's nodes, gives us the South Node and the North Node position points. And the North Node, like I said before, is our purpose, destiny in life, what we need to be heading towards. Sorry, Sandy says in the comments about how magical the country is. Yeah, you're totally right. Not many Capricorns would say that, 100%. 100%. So our North Node in Virgo, Canada and Canadians, is the life purpose of Canada. The things that Canada needs to be focusing on. My mom is very, very funny and cute when she talks about astrology, and she calls the North Node the North Star. So sometimes she says to me, Maggie, what's going on with my North Star in Sagittarius? It's the North Node. And I like that my mom calls it the North Star, because it makes me think about, the term the North Star. If you're lost out in nature, you find the North Star to give you direction, right? That's pretty much what our North Node is at any point in our life, if we're ever confused, if we ever look at our chart and go, you know what, this is just like so much information, and I don't understand any of this right now. This isn't making sense to me. I don't, get it. If you're an astrologer into astrology, or just a normal person into the astrology, look at your North Node and discover your North Node, because this is the key to what you need to be focusing on. This is the key unlock of why you're here, your higher purpose of why you're here. So really cool that for Canada's North Node is Virgo. Sorry, guys, I'm just going to take one sip of my tea. So Virgo is this sign, as I mentioned before, that rules practicality. It's one of the 3 earth signs. Virgo is the most judgmental of all the signs. Virgos can be really judgmental and analytical, but they're great because they notice everything. They notice all the details. Very grounded. They love to be of service. They love to work. They love to be doing something of help, of service to people. So this is Canada's higher calling, to be of service. I'll just use my Texas accent and say, Canada is a country that is destined to be of service. So we're moving away from that South Node in Pisces of not being grounded and these illusions, not being in our power, to North Node in Virgo, being in our power. Our highest power is being of service with our spiritual gifts and our sensitivity to the world, and our Aries ascendant, our leadership in those ways. The chart of Canada actually has a lot of really cool gifts to share, but we need to be grounded to be able to share our gifts, right? So I wrote here, energy we need to be focusing on is that of Virgo and the 6th house. So it's also really like looking at the facts of something and not this mamby-pamby magical energy. So for example, with Pierre Poilievre, which is the conservative leader, is he the conservative leader of Canada, or he wants to be the conservative leader? He's conservative, running for prime minister, that a lot of people are excited about. So with him, for example, we need to get out of this South Node Pisces of what a lot of Canada did with Justin Trudeau when he ran for prime minister, and step into our North Node Virgo, put our North Node Virgo glasses on, and look at him like, I don't care how you look. I care what you say. I want to know what the facts are. Actually, Virgo does care how you look, but you guys know what I mean. It's like let's forget about the spiritual side for a second and look at what you're physically offering and saying to me. And does that serve the country? So even if Pierre Poilievre is like not the next prime minister or whatever, like this is what we need to be focusing on with our leaders, new leaders of Canada, the new systems of Canada, what we have to offer, that it's grounded, that it's real. Virgo is like things that are real. Very, very, very important, this North Node in Virgo. And surprise, surprise, the North Node of Virgo in Canada is at a Cancer degree. So there's a Cancer influence on the North Node in Virgo. Another big Cancer influence. So we're going to get into now the main aspects of the birth chart. So we've looked at the sun, moon, rising, the interplanetary placements, the outer planetary placements, the 12th house stellium and how significant that is, the Pisces stellium, the North Node, our higher purpose. And now we're going to look at some of the aspects. And like I said before, the aspects are the relationships between different planets. And we can have positive aspects, nice, easy aspects. This is my cat who wants to say hello now, Ocean. Hi, everybody. There's positive, easy aspects like sextile and trine. Those are like very lucky, positive aspects. And then hard, challenging aspects like a square or an opposition. So good news, Canada's chart has some really nice positive aspects. There are challenging ones too, but I think the positive ones actually really outweigh the negative ones. And I would say, I would be honest if it didn't. That's just how I do astrology. I like to be really my Scorpio sun honesty. So I think the most significant aspect, main aspect of the birth chart of Canada is this sun in Cancer that is exactly conjunct Uranus in Cancer. So I mentioned this a little bit before, so let's talk about this. So the sun being our most important part of our chart, our life force, our identity, our core purpose, really who we are, the country is at a soul level of the time of birth in Cancer, is exactly conjunct 0 degrees orb. So exactly conjunct the strongest aspect, Uranus, the planet of freedom and independence and shocks and surprises. So I think that this is actually really funny, and this made me laugh when I found this out, because it's like, okay, yeah, we're destined to have this rebirth. It's, 8 degrees, the sun in Uranus. We're destined to go through this Scorpio dark night of the soul, to step into our power, and it's going to be shocking. Uranus is shocking, and Uranus is also weird and weirdos and rebels and just weird, like weirdos, Aquarius weirdos, right? And we can see this, for example, with the trucker freedom convoy that happened. Like that was totally Canada's sun conjunct Uranus. Like, what is more weirder when you think about it, and random and unique, all Aquarius energy, a convoy of peaceful truckers driving from one side of the second biggest country in the world to the other side of the second biggest country in the world, and peacefully partying with their trucks and families and kids and bouncy castles and drum circles and all this stuff in front of the Parliament building, like only miles away from, I'm just going to say, our little dictator, Justin Trudeau. Like, how weird and random is that? That's a total sun conjunct Uranus. It's also shocking when we're looking at the shocking, unique things about Canada, is what has happened to Canada in the past 2 years. So yes, after looking at some of the history, if you look at the history of Canada, or like we went through a little bit of the brief hidden and not so hidden history of Canada, we can see, yeah, at some point this was going to come out, that this isn't actually like a free, independent country, and shit's going to hit the fan and so on and so forth. But to be a Canadian that genuinely thought, I live in the best country in the world, to go from that to now, oh my God, we've got like this really, I'm just going to say, acting evil at the moment, prime minister, acting like a dictator. The borders are closed to the unvaccinated. People are losing their jobs. They shut down the bank accounts of people that supported the truckers. I don't have to go on and on. I know you guys watching this video get the gist of what I'm saying. How shocking is it, the state of Canada right now, when you think about it, and particularly for Canadians that genuinely thought they were in the safest country in the world. Pretty crazy. So those are kind of like some shocking examples that I can think that make sense for the Sun conjunct Uranus. And I really feel it's going to get trippier and weirder and more shocking in a positive way. The trucker convoy was just the start, because we have Saturn is currently in Uranus. So that's activating the Uranus in the birth chart of Canada. And we have Pluto in March of 2023 entering Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus. So like I've said before, when a planet is currently in a sign that we have that in the chart, or, that planet in the chart, we look to see where that's being activated. So this whole theme of freedom and independence and rebelliousness and revolution, this is going to come up huge for Canada. And I'm going to get to that in the next videos of this series more deeply, but it's destined to happen. It's going to happen. We've already seen the brief sneak peek with the truckers and some other things that have gone on, but it's going to continue. And it's going to get bigger and bigger until it explodes and until the true independence happens. Because another aspect that is pretty much exactly hitting the Sun and Uranus is Jupiter. Jupiter, the planet that makes things bigger, expands things, and its luck and positivity, is trining the Sun and Uranus, positive energy flow. So it's destined to happen. We don't even have to worry about it anymore. And I hope that you guys watching, I hope it resonates with you what I'm saying, because it's like, I am so filled with relief after looking at this chart of Canada with all these really nice Jupiter aspects and the Sun conjunct Uranus and our Aries ascendant. Like it's really, really good stuff. So also another interesting thing about this Sun conjunct Uranus is Uranus is the planet that rules inventions and genius energy. And when I was preparing for this presentation, I thought, what kind of inventions have been are from Canada, inventions of Canada? There are so many, I laughed so hard. There's so many inventions from Canada, our Uranus conjunct the Sun, that if you go to Wikipedia, just go online, type in Canada inventions, all these things used worldwide that you would never guess are from Canada. I thought it was hilarious. We have an innovative quality about us too, not just these spiritual gifts, not just these gifts of service and being of service to others and sensitivity, but also innovation and science. Sun conjunct Uranus, scientific gifts, scientific things to offer. There was all kinds of random things that have been invented by Canadians. So yeah, it's funny to look that up if you feel interested in looking that up. And when you think about it, Canada is less than 300 years old. It's what, 200 and something years old. And I looked at different countries around the same age, and there was not nearly as many inventions as Canada. So I thought that was really, really cool. So this Sun conjunct Uranus, we have a need and a destiny for independence and freedom. And I'm just going to say, it's going to happen. It is going to happen. Okay, another aspect we have. So there's two aspects in the chart of Canada that are exact. So something that we call 0-degree orb, like exact aspects, the strongest aspects. So the first one was the Sun conjunct Uranus. And then the second one is this one. This one also made me really, really happy. Saturn sextile the North Node. So a sextile is one of the positive aspects. And I wrote here in the caption, thank you, Granddaddy Saturn, for helping Canada achieve its North Node. That's basically what this is. Saturn, malefic, really harsh planet that I always feel the Saturn energy like a grandfather, father, over your head, like you need to do this right, and you have to have your ducks in order and responsibilities. And it's success. Saturn rules success, not just responsibilities and getting things done, but success. Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn, leaders and CEOs and business and high level business, the top of the building in New York City, owning the penthouse, that's Capricorn. So Saturn sextile North Node is like, Saturn is like, yep. And right here, if you look at, this is the sextile, this line here between Saturn and the North Node in the image. Saturn is like, yep, I'm going to help you fulfill that North Node. Not a problem. Granddaddy Saturn is going to help you out with that. So that makes me like really, really happy to see that. Inez says, as an official country, we're on 155 years old. We've accomplished a lot. Wow. Yeah. Like that's nothing, right? And it's so funny when you look at the inventions. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show you guys these inventions because anyways, check this out. This made me laugh. So like Inez, thank you for saying that. Canada is only 155 years old. And look at all of these inventions. In computing, film, and animation, the first search engine, film colorization, the IMAX movie system, Java programming language, keyframe animation, blah, 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 blah. In communications, the first 735 kV power line, AM broadcasting, BlackBerry device, Creed teleprinter system, the first atomic clock, the first computerized braille, the first fathometer, the first gramophone, hot wire battery, newsprint, and pulped wood paper. Like if you think about it, this is crazy. A country for 155 years old. I looked at Mexico, which I think is around the same age. It was like not a lot for Mexico. Nowhere near as much. Pager, quartz clock, radio telephony, standard time. Interesting. Telephone headset, undersea telegraph cable, walkie-talkie, and then all of these different foods. Poutine, of course, the snowblower, the steam-powered foghorn, the snowplow, different defense, army things, domestic life and fashion, the first alkaline battery, the Caesar cocktail, the egg carton, like all lawn sprinkler, incandescent light bulb. This is a lot. I promise you guys, I was looking at different countries. This is a lot of inventions for a country that only has an age of 155 years. And it just goes on and on and on. So yeah, that's our sun conjunct Uranus. So this Saturn sextile North Node, yay, thank you, Granddaddy Saturn. That makes me very, very happy that Saturn is on our side in fulfilling our North Node highest destiny of coming into grounded leadership. That's what Virgo is, out of the South Node in Pisces. Okay, now we've also got, I mentioned before, these very lucky, positive, and expansive Jupiter aspects. Woohoo! So the Sun trine Jupiter, orb 1 degree away from each other, very strong aspect, and Jupiter trine Uranus. So we got Saturn helping out our North Node, and we've got Jupiter helping out our Sun and Uranus to step into our power. The Sun is our power, and Jupiter is the most lucky thing to have. So Jupiter, as I said before, makes anything it touches bigger and more expansive. So we have a big need for freedom and independence. It is going to happen, and it's going to be lucky. There could be something, I'll just put out a little prediction that I feel. It could be a miracle that occurs. We could get really lucky. If you guys know anybody who their chart is ruled by Jupiter, or they're a Sagittarius, or they have a lot of Jupiter influence in their chart, Sagittarius, which is the sign ruled by Jupiter, they're just lucky. They love to travel, they love to explore. They go places and are safe in situations and laugh their way through the whole thing that other people could really not do well in. They're like the luckiest ones and very optimistic. So this is saying, like, there could be something that happens to help us, Canada, step into our power that is actually like a magical miracle. I'm just going to be real. It could be a total magical miracle. I think it would be very, very powerful if Canadians really consciously stepped into their power. Our Aries ascendant, which is going to be activated, that I'm going to talk a lot about in the next video. Like, that's what we really need to do. But this Jupiter trining the sun in Uranus is like, it's kind of going to happen anyways, and you're lucky that you have this. That's what that is saying. And Jupiter, it's the planet of optimism and abundance and luck, but it's also our beliefs. So it helps us to heal from these Pisces illusion beliefs that we have. It's going to help us cleanse and shake those off. Okay, so this is another one of our strongest aspects. That is a challenging aspect, but there's actually, I think, some good stuff to it that we have that. Saturn is opposite Pluto. So Saturn retrograde in the 7th house, opposite Pluto, 2-degree orb, so off by 2 degrees, but it's still a very strong aspect. Saturn in Scorpio and Pluto is in Taurus, and Scorpio and Taurus are opposite signs. So that's kind of interesting. Saturn opposite Pluto is power struggles and secrets. You know, Pluto, ruler of Scorpio, is also secrets that have to come forward. The Saturn opposite Pluto, it is challenging, but I actually feel more like good out of it, because it's basically saying, yeah, this Pluto manipulation, shadow side, control issues of leaders, it's going to come up. Saturn. I think people will be held responsible. When you have a Saturn opposite Pluto, it's good to look at the start of the birth chart. So in this case, it's the country of Canada, 1867. And when you have Saturn opposite Pluto, looking at the start of the birth chart, to look at what was going on at that time and the wounds around that time, the shadows of that time, because that needs to be healed. So once again, we have this theme of like deep healing of wounds from the past, like the 12th house stellium. And this is specifically telling us control issues of people in power that don't really have the highest, best intention for the people and the citizens of the country. So yeah, it can also give us, when we have this Saturn opposite Pluto, because Canada has gone through a sabotage energy of the leadership, it can make the Canadians scared in a way of authority and leadership. So that's something that we're gonna have to heal through this. Through, I think, a completely new system is going to be created, and I personally think that we're going to step away from the monarchy, from being a constitutional monarchy, into independence, because that's the only thing that can really happen for us to heal from this. We need to be an independent country and stand on our 2 feet out of this Pisces into the North Node Virgo, into the grounded, feet on the ground. Yes, this is like big wounds that have happened with these royal families, leaders, but we have to move forward. We're actually destined to move forward and be independent. So this aspect is showing us, yeah, there's been some nasties in power. Let's just put it simply like that. That's what that is showing. Okay. So some other strong medium aspects in the chart, there's lots of aspects in the chart, but the ones that I shared, I thought were the most important and relevant at this time. There is also Moon square Chiron, which I talked about before. Yeah, Saturn opposite Pluto, lots of different ones, lots of different things going on. So I'm going to talk a little bit, one of the last things I'm going to share is the chart patterns. And this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I find it so fascinating, like the shapes and patterns that can come up in the middle of the chart where the aspects are. So there's 4 very significant chart patterns, powerful chart patterns in the chart of Canada. The first one is a T square, which I mentioned before, which is when you have an opposition of 2 planets. So in this case, it's actually 3 things because it's the Sun and Uranus on top of each other conjunct opposite the midheaven, which the midheaven is just the top of the birth chart. So when you got that, and then there's a planet, something right in the middle. So Neptune is getting the hit of this T square of the midheaven and the Sun Uranus opposite of each other. So it puts a lot of heavy weight onto Neptune and stress onto Neptune in Aries. And we also see this, I'm just going to move forward one moment, in one of the yods, which is a very sacred ancient Kabbalah symbol in astrology. We have one of our yods pointing towards Neptune. So we have a yod pointing what is known as its finger of God towards Neptune. So it's kind of like God going, look at this Neptune. And in the T square, look at this T square, look at this Neptune. So once again, Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, illusions, disillusionment, all that stuff I mentioned. So this is a harsh aspect, but I think actually the positive things in the chart overrule the challenging parts of the chart overall. Like this is a chart where there's more positive, nice things than harsh aspects going on. Even though it's a 12th house stellium, which can be really, really hard in the T square. But another cool thing is there's a rectangle, a chart pattern called a rectangle, which is also known as a mystic rectangle. And a mystic rectangle is when you have 2 pairs of opposition planets. So look, boom, boom, 2 oppositions going on, and they're in sextile to one another. So sextile oppositions are like kind of challenging, but then the sextiles are really nice. See how it's like an hourglass in the middle of there? It's a big rectangle. So a mystic rectangle shows very highly developed spiritual gifts. A lot of spiritual practitioners, healers, teachers will have a mystic rectangle. So with this mystic rectangle, that includes, part of it is the Jupiter in Pisces, the Sun in Cancer, the Uranus in Cancer, the Mars in Virgo, the midheaven in Capricorn. Canada is destined to share spiritual gifts with its own country and on the world stage, and has highly developed spiritual gifts and sensitivity. This is quite a rare one to have. And then these next 2 chart patterns, this is, I would say this is extremely, extremely rare to have 2 yods. Having 1 yod is rare enough, but having 2 yods in a chart, this is extremely rare. And what is a yod? That's like a funny word, right? A yod is a rare, very rare aspect pattern of 1 sextile and 2 quincunxes, which is an aspect we're not going to get that much into. It's a little bit more advanced. And it creates like an isosceles triangle shape. And in Kabbalah astrology, a yod is known as the finger of God. And when someone or something has a yod in the chart, it's very destined and very fated. And when we're looking at a yod, we want to look at where is the finger. It's kind of like a finger pointing at something, the yod shape. What is the finger pointing towards? So in one of the yods, the finger is pointing towards Neptune, which is, all that Pisces stuff we have to deal with. And the second yod is pointing towards Saturn and Scorpio. All that Scorpio, heaviness, secrets, also power and our power, and also spiritual gifts again that we have to look at. And Saturn, pointing towards Saturn, granddaddy Saturn, planet of responsibilities and karma. Saturn is also karma. Okay, so karma, I believe, rules, and Saturn is the Lord of karma. So I think this is really, really interesting. It's like we will reach our maturity. Saturn is maturity. Canada will reach its maturity, its adulthood, stepping into its power and responsibility. But this first yod is like, you're going to have to deal with this Neptune illusions right on top of the ascendant, on top of the Aries ascendant first. Anyone or anything that has a yod in their chart is known as a yod bearer, which is pretty cool. And once again, this is very, very sacred chart pattern to have. Very fated, very destined. It's not a light thing. It's very, very intense. So Canada is a double yod bearer. Canada, the country, is the bearer of 2 yods. So that's really, really cool. Okay, guys, so I want to review some of the key points and themes in the chart that I have looked at, analyzed, interpreted. So number 1, I believe that Canada will succeed in going through its rebirth into its fullest potential of freedom, independence, and being of healthy service to itself and the world. And this is shown in the chart through these placements. The Sun and Uranus conjunct in Scorpio degree, 8 degrees. Saturn and Scorpio sextile the North Node. Once again, granddaddy Saturn is assisting Canada fulfill its North Node in Virgo. Our ascendant in Aries, our warrior within, our masculine. This is our saving grace that is being activated over the coming years. Jupiter trine Uranus, Sun trine Jupiter, Pluto in the first house, and 2 sacred yods for achieving destiny and fate. My second big key point, takeaway, theme of the chart of Canada that I've looked at is Canada needs to face the sensitive pain, wounds, secrets, illusions of our past and our present before we can truly move forward and step into our highest potential. And that is shown with our Chiron in Pisces, our South Node in Pisces, the Pisces stellium, 12th house stellium, Sun in the 4th house, also very sensitive, our Saturn in Scorpio retrograde, and the Saturn opposite Pluto. Really big that we need to face this. And we need to, as Canadians, be there for each other during this, I'm just going to call it shamanic initiation, dark night of the soul, transformation, rebirth, all those things. And also, if you're in the spiritual community, in the wellness field, what do we always say to people? Ask for help and you will receive. call upon your friends. So we can also call upon our American friends and family, our European friends and family, the people of the world to support us as we go through this very sensitive time of like, whoa, we thought we were the freest, safest, best country in the world. And actually we're a constitutional monarchy, which I kind of knew the whole time, but I didn't want to face that. We're going to need support with this. And I think the Americans are going to support us a lot. I think they are supporting us a lot. And the Europeans are also really supporting us a lot. If you guys see the European Parliament, they are constantly bringing up Justin Trudeau and how a lot of what he is doing is not right. And they call him out as a dictator in the European Parliament on a regular basis. So we need to ask for help from our friends. Like that Beatles song, Ringo Starr saying, I get by with a little help from my friends. That's like, I think, one of our theme songs for right now for Canada. Okay. And the last big key point takeaway that I've put here is there's a huge, big Cancer and Pisces influence in the chart. Lots of water energy in this chart. Sun in Cancer in 4th house, Uranus in Cancer 4th house, Sun Uranus conjunct, even though Uranus isn't necessarily a water, Aquarius isn't a water sign, but it's symbolically the water bearer. So isn't that interesting? Sun trine Jupiter, 5 placements in a Cancer degree, the moon, rising ascendant, Mercury, north node and south node. And all this Cancer energy means it's important to us, the home, the family, our ancestors. This is what we can lean on for support, what we really need to connect to. Traditions, community, nurturing, our intuition, our emotional sensitivity. And I don't know if you can hear, there's an ambulance going by here right now. So this is important, 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 this Cancer energy of healing our home, right? And the Pisces influence, like I said before, is spiritual gifts, creativity, extreme sensitivity, the outer realms, the outer reaches of dimensions in the universe, secrets and hidden and what's behind the scenes, right? And we've got that Pisces stellium, the 12th house stellium, Neptune, ruler of Pisces on top of the ascendant, the yod with Neptune as the focal point, and the T-square with Neptune in the middle. So huge Cancer and Pisces influence. Okay, guys. So I know that that is a lot of information. This is all for part 1 of this Astrology of Canada video series. I look forward to doing part 2, 3, and 4 in the coming weeks. All the information is here on the screen. If you would like to watch any of the other live videos on Zoom live, then please send me an email at megmoonbeam777@gmail.com or add me on Instagram, Facebook, and message me that you want to join in. I want to thank you guys very much if you've gotten this far to listening all the way. I know it's a lot of information and I felt really called to share all this and continue sharing it. So I hope it resonated. I hope it brought you hope and optimism. I think Canada and Canadians have a lot to look forward to. And yeah, if you'd like to support my work as an astrologer, as a mystic, I have a PayPal donation link that I'll put in the description of this video if you feel to do that. And I also offer personal astrology sessions of your birth chart, of your solar return, of any kind of astrological chart you want to look at for yourself, transits, synastry, all that stuff. So I am available for personal sessions, and I'll put my contact information in the description of this video. So Thank you so much, guys, for listening. I'm going to stop the live recording now. Everybody who's live on here, you can stay and we can have a little chat. I love you all so much. Let's send love and prayers to Canada and the whole world to step into freedom and fairness. And, you know, we know it's going to happen anyways. It's already happened, where it's in the age of Aquarius, the new earth, all that stuff. So I love you guys so much. Let me know what you think in the comments, and sending you all lots of love. Mwah. How do I stop this video? 1 second, guys.